Guys, welcome back to another Broco's YouTube video. Today we got our top 24 running backs for week 4 of fantasy football. And before we get into it, if you guys are interested, we have a completely free group chat on Chalkboard. It's the first link in the description. It has our top 48 wide receivers, 36 running backs, 20 quarterbacks, and 20 tight ends. Again, it's completely free. First link in the description. Our RB1 for the week is Christian McCaffrey. Going against the Cardinals, we like the matchup a lot. Christian McCaffrey has been decent this year. He has been very consistent. He's been like mid-teens all year. We like him this game. We for sure think he can break out, be the RB1. Arizona's a very good matchup for him. He's our RB1 for week 4. And at number 2, fallen down a little bit, but it's still Jonathan Taylor. He's been kind of disappointing lately, but he's still Jonathan Taylor, still runs behind that Colts offensive line, and we do like the matchup a lot against the Titans. Our RB3 on the week is Saquon Barkley. Saquon has been balling. He absolutely exploded week 1. Week 2 was a bit disappointing, but week 3 he was great again. Also, this Bears defense who he's up against let Aaron Jones go crazy on them. Damian Pierce had a very good week. We love Saquon for week 4. First player in the next tier is Austin Ekeler at running back 4. Chargers got blown out last week, and the offense was pretty disappointing. But Ekeler still getting that super high PPR numbers. He hasn't been as good as he was last season, but still super solid. First player in A tier for running backs. And our RB5 on the week is Derrick Henry. He was very disappointing in week 1 and 2, but week 3 he finally broke out, had over 24 fantasy points, and actually was used in the passing game, had 5 receptions. He's going against the Colts, not the best matchup, but he's still Derrick Henry, so he's our RB5. And at RB6, it's Najee Harris, another player who's been pretty underwhelming so far, but we just love this matchup. Week 2, Nick Chubb and the Browns ran all over the Jets. The Jets don't have the greatest run defense in the world, and Najee Harris is prime for a big game against the Jets. And our last player in the tier of RB1 is Nick Chubb. He has a pretty good matchup against the Falcons. The Falcons defense hasn't been amazing this year, and Nick Chubb has been the vocal point of his offense, getting a lot of touches. Obviously, Kareem Hunt is going to take some, but Nick Chubb's still that clear RB1. We love Nick Chubb this week. First running back in the next tier and RB8 on the week is Leonard Fournette against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have not been great against running backs, ranked, I believe, 24th in the league. Leonard Fournette, another player, hasn't scored a touchdown all year, been pretty disappointing, but this is a game where he could easily have a ton of fantasy points. And our RB9 on the week is Joe Mixon. We loved Joe Mixon last week, but he did disappoint us. Only 6.8 fantasy points, only 24 rushing yards, but he showed his PPR upside in week 1, over 21 fantasy points, had 9 targets, 7 receptions. This guy can be used in the passing game. He also is questionable, so if he doesn't play, he's obviously not on these rankings. Also, going against the Dolphins, Devin Singletary had a very nice game in week 3, so we do like the matchup a decent amount. RB10 on the week is Alvin Kamara. Looked pretty bad week 1, missed week 2 with an injury, and came back last week and was not great. But this matchup against the Vikings should be solid, and he always has tons of PPR upside. It hasn't shown so far, but we're hoping it hits this week in England against the Vikings. And our RB10 on the week, another player playing in the early Sunday game, it's Dalvin Cook. In week 3, he was looking pretty solid before he got injured, and again, this is only if he plays. We expect him to play with his shoulder. He's day-to-day right now, and he's our RB10. And the last player in this tier is Aaron Jones. He has been super inconsistent. Pretty bad week 1, over 30 points week 2. Again, pretty bad last week. Don't love this matchup against the Patriots, but again, would rather have him over Dillon. The PPR upside just makes him so much more valuable for fantasy football. Like him a solid amount as a low-end RB1 for week 4. And our first RB2 is James Conner. James Conner has been pretty disappointing, averaging in the low teens, 4 points per game, and they're going against the Panthers, who have been pretty good against running backs, but Conner has PPR upside, he gets the goal line work, so we do like him as an elite RB2. And at running back 14, it's James Robinson. He has been amazing for fantasy football. He's the current RB3, averaging over 18 fantasy points a game. Don't like this matchup against Philly. Philly looks elite right now, but James Robinson has been so good. And our next running back in this tier is Javonte Williams. He's gone under 10 fantasy points in his last 2 games, so we do like the matchup against the Raiders. Derrick Henry just had over 24 points. Javonte, he doesn't play on a ton of snaps, but he should get the goal line work, should get some PPR upside. We like Javonte this week. And first player in the next tier is Cordarrelle Patterson. He has been super hit and miss this year. Week 1, awesome. Week 2, terrible, under 5 points. And week 3 last week had over 20 fantasy points. This week against the Browns, it's kind of a mid matchup. Don't love it, but don't hate it. Cordarrelle Patterson always offers high upside, but he also has a super low floor. And our RB17 on the week is Jamal Williams. We were obviously assuming Swift's not going to play, but if he does, obviously Jamal is not on this list. Jamal last week only played 45% of snaps, but had over 24 fantasy points, 20 attempts, 87 yards, had 2 touchdowns. We love him if Swift is out this week. Next running back is Antonio Gibson. He has been solid so far, but not spectacular, averaging around 14 points. Washington looked pretty awful last week. Gibson had around 12 points, but it was with a touchdown. Had a pretty bad week. And again, the against the Cowboys. Don't love this matchup, but he is still a solid RB2 for week 4. And our next RB is Breece Hall. This is a guy that could be breaking out. He got 15 fantasy points last week, finally played over 50% of snaps, but the big thing, he got 11 targets. Well, Joe Flacco's a QB. He's going to dump the ball off to RBs so much on passing plays. Only had 6 catches out of the 11 targets. But when he gets those targets, he's going to get fantasy points. We like Breece Hall this week. And the last player in this tier is Ezekiel Elliott. He had that awful start to the season, 5.9 points in both of the first 2 games. But last week against the Giants, he looked well. Got in the end zone finally. Looked like he was finally getting back. He's not old Zeke, but he's at least playing somewhat well. Matchup against Washington is pretty good as well. Like Zeke, it's a solid RB2. And our first borderline RB2 is Damian Pierce. He was great last week. Over 18 points, 20 attempts for 80 rushing yards. Only did have 2 targets, but the big thing against him is the LA Chargers matchup. Yes, they just let James Robinson and ETN both have decent days. As a whole, they were pretty bad against the running back in week 3, but we expect the Chargers to be up in this game. Pierce shouldn't be able to run the ball too much with the Texans. We expect being down, so we don't absolutely love him, but he is a solid low-end RB2. Next up is Jeff Wilson. Don't love the matchup against the Rams. The Rams, I believe, are number 2 against running backs right now, but the Niners always play the Rams pretty well, and Jeff Wilson is the clear RB1 for this team. Tyrion Davis-Price is out. Elijah Mitchell is out. Obviously, Trey Lance is no longer the quarterback, taking away rushing attempts. He's the clear RB1, and that offers upside for fantasy football. And next, our RB23 is Clyde EdwardsHelaire. He's one of our biggest trade-away candidates. Currently, he's the RB4. He is playing super well, but this week against the Bucs, we hate the matchup. His points, though, they have been crazy good. 22, 16, 15, getting a good amount of catches, but he does have a couple lucky receiving touchdowns. Not lucky, but not continuous. Tampa Bay has really been good against the run. Stopped Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in week 3 very well, so we like Clyde EdwardsHelaire as a low-end RB2. And the last running back, this is completely assuming he plays, is David Montgomery. If he misses time, slot in Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert will be a beast, but assuming Monty plays, he should be solid week 4 against the Giants. The Giants did not do super well against the Cowboys last week. Pollard over 100 yards, Zeke over 14 fantasy points. Like the matchup, David Montgomery is solid, low-end RB2 for week 4. And boys, thanks so much for watching the video. Again, if you want to check out our group chat, it's completely free. It's a free app called Chalkboard. Check the first link in the description. We have so much rankings on there, trade targets, waiver wire targets. Thanks boys for watching the video. We'll see you guys next time.